Hello to the curious and welcome to part 4 of this e-learning platform tutorial. Now, in this episode, we're going to be looking at building out the courses side of the project. And what that means is we're going to go into Strapi, build out the backend, so all the content types and relations. We're also going to build custom hooks to actually pull that information from Strapi into our data layer so we can use it in the front end. And then we're actually going to build out the front end and the UI to make the courses look beautiful. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to like and subscribe and click the bell notification to know when all the videos in the series are coming out and any other videos on the channel that you may enjoy. And also follow me on the Hashton on Twitter and join us on Discord if you want to join the Curious Bike community. Without further ado, let's get building. So in this video, what I wanted to do is actually show you what we're going to be building before we go ahead and build it. So I'll give you a quick run through of what you'll be building in this video. So you can see here, we'll start with a header. We have a courses page that's been added. When you click that, it takes you to the courses page. We have a new hero placeholder component, and we have some courses here in a course grid. So we've got the title, the description, and the user that is associated with that course who generally would have created it. So if we click one of these individual courses, let's say this Next.js one, we can see that we then go to the course page. You can see that we have the individual lessons here. There's 5 on this one, and it's got the video on the right. So when this is connected to the lessons properly, you'll be able to click play and watch one of these videos, whichever it is that you're on. So if you click one, it will take you to the individual lesson page, and pay attention to the URL here. It's all dynamically rooted and nested. So it's course 1, lesson 6. So if I take this, copy and paste it and go into a new page, it'll take me to the exact same video from the lesson of the course. If I change this to, for example, course 2, and we'll say lesson 1, it'll then take me to the first video of the next course. So let's go back to the courses page. So you can see we've got 3 here. We've checked out this one. Let's go to advanced JavaScript. You can see there's 2 videos in here. So we've only set up 2 lessons in here. And then if we go back again and we go to CSS beginner, there are actually no lessons in here. So when there's no lessons, we have this screen. Oops, there are currently no lessons on this course. So there's a bit of error handling there in the UI if, for whatever reason, a course gets released without videos. So if there is that use case, then there is that as well. Or it's a nice placeholder to have until videos do get added. And with this course header, just click back and you can go back. So we're going to go ahead and build this out now. So we're going to build out all this course information. So let's get stuck in. Now we're back to where we last left off in the previous video. We still need to add the courses information, but before we do that and we add courses and lessons, we'll actually need to get the backend ready to be able to add that information and for the data layer to accept it. So let's go into Strapi now and start adding those backend APIs. So if you go to the Strapi dashboard and we'll go to content type builder, and you can see that I've got 2 collection types here. I've got courses and user. So if I go to courses, and you can see I've got title and description. So very basic. And what we want to do is we want to create a new one that has a relation with a user. And the reason why is, so when someone creates a course, they can assign the user to it, which is essentially the person who created it. So we'll add another field to this collection here. We'll go to relation, and then we'll go to this part here and go to users from permission. We'll say course has 1 user. We'll just change that to field name of user. And that's now connected to the user. So when you create this, you can assign one. Now the next thing we want to do is add a lessons relation but we haven't got a lessons content type. So we're going to need to go and add that now. So we go down to here and click create new collection type after we save. So we'll restart. So create new collection type and we'll go lessons. Make sure to set the singular, continue. We'll add a title as one, and then we'll add description, and then we'll add video URL. So this is going to host our video essentially, and then we'll go and add duration. So this is the video duration. So is it like 5? So it'll be like 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever. So we've got description. Just go in here, make sure we change this to long text in description. Forgot to do that. And then finally, we'll add our relation to the user. So we'll go back down to here, change this. So we'll change this to lesson has and belongs to one user. And then we'll click finish. And then if we click save, we can now see that we have the lessons type here. So we'll go back to courses and we'll add another relation and we'll just simply choose a lesson. And what we'll say, so what we're going to say is course has many lessons, which makes sense. That's going to be the relation. So there'll probably be maybe 10 lessons, 20 lessons, 50 lessons under one course. Brilliant. Let's click finish. So that's course lessons setup. Let's save this first, and then we'll go to user to do the final one. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to add course progress. So as the user's progressing through, the actual course progress that he's making is going to be saved to the user account in a JSON format. So let's go here, go to JSON, and we'll call it course progress. Now this is subject to change once we actually get to the user progress video. I'll click finish. Okay, and save that. And what we want to do is we want to go to the content manager. Now you can see I've already created 3 courses here. I showed you in the earlier part of the video when we actually looked through the courses UI that we had already built. And if we go to, let's just choose Next.js Masterclass, we can see we've got a title, we've got a description, and we have a user. So we have the Ashton, and we've got some lessons here, or we should do, but we haven't right now. So let's just save this and we'll go to lessons and see that we've actually not got any lessons. So we'll add some lessons now, and I'll go ahead and I'll create one and then I'll create the rest after that. So we'll create one video now. So we'll say intro to Next.js, or what is Next.js? Exploring what Next.js actually is and how it's super useful. We'll say it's a duration of 10 minutes or 12 minutes. We'll just give it a random YouTube embed URL. So if you, for this to work, we're going to use the embed URL. So if we go to
Next.js.
So if we go to this Fireship video, for example, on what Next.js is, and we go to share, we go to embed, and then we just grab this URL here, and then we go back here, pop that in, and then we add a user. That should all be good. And always make sure to click publish as well, otherwise you won't see it on the API. That's an issue I have found out one too many times. So let's go to back, and let's add some more. Right, so there we go. So I've added about 5 lessons for this individual one. I'll just add a couple more to advanced JavaScript. We'll be good to go. So just do the same thing for the JavaScript ones. Added a title, description, a duration, put in a different video embed for this one, and then just the user, save and publish. We'll create a new entry. Right, so these are our lessons now. So let's go add them to the courses. We'll go to advanced JavaScript and we'll add what is JavaScript, and then we'll add the spelling mistake in that one. Save. Just add the Y there. Let's go to Next.js Masterclass and add these lessons here. And there you go. And you can change the order of these, whatever order you want. You don't have to add the number to the title. Probably best if you don't, to be honest. Maybe some other way of organizing it. So maybe we could add a course slug or something to differentiate it. But for now, this works. You can use your own strategy for how to differentiate them in the lessons list. And it's pretty simple to do with the content type builder. Okay, so we've got these two courses populated. We don't want this to be populated because we want to see that screen when you have no lessons. But that's the backend set up. So now let's go create some hooks and fetch the data into our front end. So to pull the data in, we're going to make a hook now. So go within app, go to hooks, and we'll create a new file. So use fetch course data. So in this file, what we're doing is we're setting some state to set the courses and to actually store the courses themselves, the data. We've got a use effect that's doing most of the heavy lifting with the async fetch here. We're doing a request to go to API courses. Now, very importantly, because we've associated the lesson types with the courses, which is another content type entirely, we're having to use Strapi's populate parameter here. So all you do is you add a question mark populate and then equal to whatever it is you want to show. So in our case, it's lessons. And that means that it's going to show the courses now. So now it's going to show the lessons within the courses API call. And then we do some error handling. So if the response isn't okay, you can see the bang here that inverts this to, whereas if this was to check if it's okay, it would throw an error, but we don't want that. So we reverse it and then we throw an error if there's an issue with the response. And then we get the response here and store it in course data, the constant, and then we'll pop that into the set state here for course data, which then sets it, and then we have it available in courses. And that's what it returns essentially. So it's going to return this courses state here. So when we call this hook, we're going to get the course data from Strapi. So that's exactly what we want. Now we'll do something similar as well and add a hook for lessons as well, because that'll be important. So use fetch lesson data. And it's essentially the same thing, but the call or the fetch is slightly different. So we're going to API lessons, and then we're getting the information by ID, which is really important. Once we've got that by ID, we've got that in a parameter here. So lesson ID, and then essentially we're going to return lesson once the use effect has done its work and set the state here. So very similar to the courses hook. So let's add that now, but before we do, let's just quickly add some padding here. So we'll go to our layout component and we'll just wrap it in a main element, semantic element, and then just add some padding of 2 rem. Right, let's open up the page component. So const courses equals use fetch course data. So now we have that here, and then what we'll do is we'll just console log courses, and we'll see what that looks like. So I'll open up the inspector here, console log, clear that, let's log in, go to the home page, and we open this up, and we can see now, well, I'll make this a bit bigger, open this a bit wider. So we can see now if we open that up, we've got 3 values in this array. So we've got Next.js, the master class inside attributes with all the information, and then we have all this data as well for advanced JavaScript. Now, one thing interestingly you'll notice, we don't actually have the lessons in here. I imagine that's probably something permissions related. So let's go back and troubleshoot that. Back here, go to settings, go to roles, go to public, and then we'll go to user permissions. That all seems fine. What we're looking for is find and find one to be set up. So lesson, so find and find one need to be updated. Okay, so that's done. Go back to roles, go to authenticated, go to lesson and make sure this is enabled, and then save that. Let's just check courses. Yeah, courses is fine. User permissions, that should be fine as well. Okay, so if we go here now, we'll clear that, refresh it, open these up, and there we go. So now we can see lessons. So very important that you enable for authenticated users and public users whilst you're developing, that they have access to any new endpoints that you create or any new content types. So now if I click lessons, I get all the lesson information I want. So what is Next.js, video number 2, next router, and 3 next image components. So these are all the lessons essentially for the Next.js master course. So we've got our API singing for courses and lessons. Let's start working on this homepage a bit. So the first thing I want to do is replace this welcome to Curious Courses with a hero component. So just a hero component to go on the top as a placeholder. Do that very quickly. So we'll go to app, components, new file, hero.tsx, an index file, and then we'll add a style sheet as well. Go to the index and just make sure we export that. And then in the hero file, we simply add a paper element from Material UI, add a bit of elevation on it so it has that nice drop shadow effect on the background. We'll add a hero class name as well, and we'll import that from the style sheet we just created. And that's pretty much all we need. Let's go to our style sheet and add some styling. So we'll add our styling now. So you can see we've got a height of 20 rem, and we've got some border radius to just round up those edges a bit, and then just some margin on the bottom. And then we'll add a little bit of padding on the inside to make it look nice, and that should be it. So we'll get this, and we'll just replace this with header. Right, and then we'll just replace this with our hero component. Oops. Brilliant. We can get rid of this console log now. And there we go. We can see what that hero looks like. So I'm pretty happy with that hero. We can get rid of, just close this inspector down now. That's our simple hero component. Let's start adding some courses now. So we want to actually add our individual course cards. So if you remember at the start of the video, the little square things that hold our course information, we'll need that going forward. So let's go back to components and we'll create a new component. Make sure we add our index file. And then we'll definitely need some styling on this. So we'll add a Sass file as well. Export by default. Okay, and then we'll go to CourseCard and start to add our information. So this is our CourseCard component. Let's close these other files down. Very carefully, we've made sure to get the information from the API that we need. So that is the course ID, which is very, very important because that's going to dictate which course it is. The key, which is more for when we map over the API. This is for React. The title and the description. So very simple things for now. We'll probably add to this as time goes on to do with avatar information, user information, and things like that. So we've got this in our props type, which we're using here. We'll open this up. We're destructuring our props here. So we'll put them in an object and then just grabbing these 4 props. And then very simply, we've got a link component that wraps the entire card so that wherever you click in the card, it's going to take you to that course. and we're setting that to the courses page, which we haven't created yet, but we will do. And then we're using the course ID. We're using some styling here for a class name called CourseLink. And then we're just taking away some of the text decorations. So generally when you create a link or you get an anchor tag, you get that default styling, which you might not necessarily want. So we're just getting rid of that, and then we're just making sure it's 100% width. Then we're adding an MUI paper component. We're adding some of our own styling here. And then we're adding our key just to give it a unique identifier in the DOM. Variant, we want it to be elevated, and then we're adding a background color of default. And then we're just adding some text. So this will create our course, and we're making it uppercase. So this is just a bit of text on the top that says course, denoting what type of card it is. And then we've got one that has the title. We're adding some margin bottom, some spacing, and then there's just some other styling. We want it to be 16 pixels, and we want it to be a H2 component. And then finally, it's our description. So we've got our description here. We're just getting a simple typography component with medium font size. And then finally, this is our author footer, essentially. So we've got a class name of author, we've added some margin bottom, we're using the avatar component, and then we've got some text here to just say the username for now. Now, because we haven't actually tied in the user progress or usernames right now, we'll just hard code this in for now. Okay, that is all done. So that is our course card. We'll just quickly add some styling here. So we're using grid here to organize it, and we've got a max width of 20 rem. We've got 8 pixels of radius because we want it to be quite round this. Just 100% width and height. We've got some styling for the links. We just want it to be centerized using flex, and then just some styling for the author, centering that, adding some gap between the avatar and the text, and then just some padding on the top, and then removing the margin. So if we go to the page component, and we'll just add a course card, and then we'll add some default attributes. So we'll add one, and then we'll say attributes, and then we'll say title, and then we'll do the same here. And then course ID, I believe, is that. Okay, just add a few null checks here. And there we go. So we can see our course card component there, but we actually want this in a grid, so we want 3 in a row. So the best way to do that is create a course grid component, which is what we'll do now. So we'll go back up here, create a new component. And then again, we'll add an index file, and we will add a course grid style sheet. Minimize these other ones. Okay. Export this by default as always. So in our course grid component, what we're going to be doing is adding our types. So we're probably going to pull these out later on once we've done our lessons video, which is the next one, and we're going to have its own type file, and we're going to basically blanket it across the project. So the entire project, the courses and the lessons, are type safe based on these types. The reason I haven't done that now is because this is probably subject to change. We add users, and we add kind of other types of information, maybe profile information, progress information. So this isn't going to be set in stone. So we don't really want to just use it just yet, considering how much change this UI is going through. We can obviously set it afterwards. So for now, it's in the course grid component. It's exported, so we can use it in other parts of the site for now, but eventually we'll put it in its own type file. But yeah, this is the shape of our data. It's an array, essentially, course data, and then it starts with ID, interestingly enough, and then attributes. You have to go into this object to then get all of this information that we've been using: title, description, some creation and published information as well, so some timestamps, and then the lessons array, which is all of this. And again, that follows the same Strapi convention of it's in data, then you have to go in attributes, and then you can get access to all of it. So that's our types. So let's go and check the markup. So the markup is very simple. We're getting our props, which is course data. We don't need this console log, so we can get rid of that. And then we've got some styling. We've got a class name here. And then we're just mapping over the course data prop to get a key course title and description. We're putting that in our CourseCard component, which we've just created. And we're typing it out, so we know what return we're getting, so we can get some autocomplete on here. So if I was to go and delete that, I can now get the option of attributes or ID. So if I had to go to attributes and then do that, I then get all of the options that I need, which is great. This is why you should type everything as well, if not for just this. So ID, that's added. Let's go add some styling quickly. So the styling for CourseGrid is actually quite simple. We just want it as display grid. We want it to be a fraction, 3 of them. So essentially we want this to auto wrap. So once it gets to a low resolution, the elements are just going to wrap. So we do that by saying that it's about 300 pixels we want each one to be. And we'll just have them that as one fraction. And then between them we want a gap of 2 rem. So let's go to page, close all the others down, and then replace this CourseCard with CourseGrid. So import that. Can delete CourseGrid now. Close that fragment. Add the missing attributes. Cool. And then if we refresh that, we can see all of our courses. Now, if we were to click each individual one, so if you click Advanced JavaScript, it takes us to courses and the second course type, because that's the, that it is an ID of 2, that course, but there's no page courses. And we're going to kind of need that to actually access our courses. So let's go set up the courses page now. So to begin setting up the courses pages, we need a link to the page, and then we can set up the page. So in the header, we're going to have access to this link by just making another link here next to profile, and that should be enough. And then we'll create the page. So if we go to header and then go down to profile, and just here add that. And then add courses, and there we go, that's fine, happy with that. Let's add this page now. So what we've done is we've just changed this media query value from 768 to 568, which just means it wraps a little later on. It now wraps at that point there, the button, whereas before it was clashing a lot sooner. So if we undo that, put that back to 7, and then you can see this issue happening. So we can just minimize components, and we're going to create a new page. So we'll go courses page.tsx. We'll make this in the app router, and within here what we're going to do is we're just going to add our CourseGrid component, which we've already added, and then we'll be using our custom hook that we created to go get our course data, and that should be fine. Let's go have a look. So now if we click courses, we should see our courses information. But the problem is, it's not quite clear what page we're on. I would imagine we would benefit better from some kind of header and some kind of information, and probably even a back button to go back. So I feel like we need some kind of course header here, and that course header we can keep throughout all the pages. So we'll go and create that now. So just within this components folder, we'll create course header.tsx, an index.ts file. Cool. Now the course header page is fairly simplistic. We've got some props here to just take some basic information like the title and the description of the course or the page we're on. And then we want a link, which is what we're going to use for the back button to take us back to where we want to go to. So I'll show you that now. So the back button is here. So this icon button here. And we want the href to be the first place that we want this to be. And if there's no href provided, it's just going to take you to the courses page. And then it simply says go back to courses or something like that, to that effect. Obviously you can amend this because we actually want this to go back to the home page at some point. But for now this is fine because we're going to have this throughout the courses page, and it's just going to take you back to the courses. And then the user information, which will be handy in the future when we have user information to put here. So all of this is wrapped in a div. We've got some basic styling, some flex, aligning it to the base, and some margin on the bottom. We've already gone through the back button. And then here, simply, we've got some text, three bits of text, title, description, and the username. And the username we don't have yet, and we will in a future video, but we're future-proofing it now and adding that in. And then obviously we're destructuring our props here. So we've got all the props here, and then we're using, and that's it really. That's our course header. Added it to our courses page. So we're taking a link to just go back to the home page. We're setting the title as courses, and the description is choose from our many courses, blah, blah, blah. And that's it, very simple. So I'll show you what the course header looks like. There you go, so very simple, courses, title, using MUI's inbuilt theme styling. And then we've got our back page, our back button, which takes us back. So now if we click any of these courses, we still 404. So we need an individual course page with the ID. So it's a nested route. So we'll need to create a new page because we can go to courses. So if I delete the number 2 here and go to courses, courses is fine. But when you click here and it nests it with its individual course page that has a number, its individual ID, we don't have a page for that. So we need a courses ID page. So let's go into VS Code, and then within courses, we'll create a new folder called courses ID, and we'll make a page.tsx file in here. And within here, we'll make a style sheet as well called course.module.sass. Let's close some of these other windows down. Now, seemingly there's a lot going on here, but these are just imports. So a lot of these are icons and things, so I wouldn't worry too much about them. Now this logic here is really, really interesting. So URL parts and course ID and course is working together, but these two here are essentially going into the URL and grabbing the number essentially from the URL as the ID, and then we're setting that here, and then we're using it. So we're basically able to find what the course is and the lesson as well. So this will be handy in the future. The reason why is because from here, once you go to the individual course page, you'll be able to point you off to the individual lesson you need to go to. So we've got our course header that we've just created. So I don't really need to explain too much. We've got the title, description, and the username put into there. And then we've got a box component which wraps the rest of the page. And this is going to be like the container for our course information and video list. So we've got a nav here, and the nav here is going to contain all the lessons. So you remember when we looked into the data, the Next.js master one, or master Next.js had 5 lessons. So it's going to go into here, and it's going to say for the length of the lessons array. So for example, it'll be 5 because there's 5 lessons in there. That's what we want to slice off, and that's all we want. That's all the information we want from that array. So we make sure it doesn't just go ahead and grab all the lessons. And then we have a list item button, which essentially links you to the course ID. Also goes within that takes you to the lessons page, which we're about to create, and then uses the lessons ID, which we grab from up here. And then we've obviously got a key because we're mapping and then just some basic styling, and then we're saying it's an anchor component. And this is essentially a list item button because we're using a list here, MUI list component. So this is quite a composable component. You can have lots of different parts to it. Very much like Radix in that regards. So we've got some list item text here, which is just our title and description for the individual lesson. And we've also got our video icon here for our lessons. And then below here, we've just got a container for where the video is going to go. So all it really does is it has some basic styling here, set some height and centerizes the content. And then it has an icon here, and then it has a check here to basically check to see if there are any lessons. So if you remember at the start of the video, I showed you there was a course that had no lessons, and this is that check for that. And if there are no lessons, if it's equal to 0, then it shows this block here, this everything within this div, which is essentially an error colored icon that says, oops, there are currently no lessons on this course. But if there are lessons on the course, then it's just going to show the play button here. And eventually within this part of the logic, we're going to add the video itself in the future and the embed. So that's the course ID page created. And then we'll just add some styling here. So we want to make sure we remove the text decoration on the links. And then on hover, we want to add an underline. And in the course frame, we're just using some flex and some wrap reverse. So essentially, once it gets to a certain point, we want the video section to go on top of the lessons and the lessons go underneath. This will all be super clear when I show you right now. And there you go. So that's what the course page now looks like, the course ID page. Before we couldn't get to it because it wasn't created, but here we go. So remember that thing I told you about it wrapping. So if we now close this, you see it goes on top. And yeah, that's a nice little icon button animation, the ripple animation from MUI. And then these individual ones, currently, if you click them, it then takes you to the individual lesson. We'll see if we're happy with that flow later on. What we might do is when you click that, it just plays the video here, which might be a better UX. But we'll quickly add that for now. We'll add it for now and then decide later whether we want to keep it or not. So to add the individual lessons very quickly, go to VS Code, and then within the courses ID folder, we'll create a new folder called lessons, and then we'll add a page within that. And very similar to the course page, we're fetching the course data. We're creating a function here that takes a parameter of ID based on the course ID, goes in and grabs the data length of the lessons. So it tells you how many there are, how many lessons there are. And we've got a title here, and then using that information, lesson amount, we're able to only show those amounts of lessons. So similar to like we did before, we use that trick where we get the amount of lessons, and then whatever the lessons that are mapped over, we only show the relevant ones. And then we're just, putting the title in here, keeping it simple. And then within this, we're going to add our lessons ID page. Similar again to the technique where we go to the URL to grab the ID number. We're doing that here again. So we're grabbing the lesson and the course ID. And then we're just checking to see whether a lesson actually exists or a lesson actually exists. Then we'll show the course header, which you're familiar with now, which takes title, description. And we're using this from our lesson fetch. So this is probably the first time we're actually using this hook. So we're using use fetch lesson data, and then we're passing in the lesson ID that we're grabbing from the URL. And then we're using that down here for the title, the description, and the video URL. So on this page, we're actually going to play the video. And then we just added some basic styling here for size and allow full screen, and controls and all that stuff. So the check here where we, at the start, where a lesson actually exists, it keeps checking for that. And if it doesn't, it just says loading. And there we go. So that should be the lessons also added. We're going to go back and obviously clean this up because we've got a lessons video coming up soon. But let's go to a courses page. Let's go right to the very beginning. We'll go to the home page. We'll choose advanced JavaScript, and then we'll click an individual link. So we'll click the first video, and then that takes us to the individual lesson page. So we can play a video now. It has the title, the description. In fact, it's got 2 descriptions. We should get rid of one. Yeah, we can delete that. There you go. And we've just got one now. And then if we click back, it takes us back to the course page. And then if we click back again, it takes us to the courses page in general. And if we click back one more time, we're back on the home page. So you can see that header, that course header, stayed with us for the majority of the time. And it was really handy to make that. But if we go to one without any lessons, a course without any lessons, this is our view now. And we have that check to see if there are lessons. And it's important to add stuff like this into your project. It's always good to think worst case scenarios for data in your project, in your UI especially. What if the data's bad? And I think we very rarely think of things like that, but it is important to do. And it is important to cater for worst case scenarios from the back end. Because, you know, the back end could have a bad day as well, and you could get bad data. So it's always important to do stuff like this, even if, you know, the chances of it happening may be remote, but it's good to cater for it as well. So there we go. So we've got our courses page up and running. We have our lessons pages kind of done. They're not fully fleshed out. We haven't got the videos playing just yet, but we'll do that when we tackle the lessons in the next video. But that's courses. And there we go. We've built out courses. So now we have our course UI set up. We have Strapi as backend for courses pretty much set up. The relations on a base level for users is pretty good. We want to do user progress in the future. So as they go through all the lessons, they'll be assigned to the user that goes and visits them, and they can track the progress through that. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we've still got to do with courses and lessons in the future. But in terms of UI, courses is pretty much there. We do want to build out the lesson UI a lot more. We want to be able to track progress and fix the UX, you know, see how far in we want to go. We may not want to show the individual lesson page, for example. That's what we'll be tackling next. We'll be looking at the lessons and how we're going to basically progress from video to video. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to Curious Byte, and hit the bell notification to know when all the subsequent videos for the series and beyond are coming. If you're on Twitter, follow me at the Hashton. And if you want to join our Curious Byte community and get involved, the link to Discord is down below. And yeah, come in and say hello, introduce yourself. But otherwise, I'll catch you in the next episode where we go over lessons and the lesson UI. And I will see you then.